Millionaire inheritance. My brother spent his, now he wants mine. Get ready for an epic twist. My brother and I were the beneficiaries of a sizable inheritance, well now it's significant. My brother sold half his share when it was worth approximately the price of a car, while I kept mine, which is now worth a substantial amount. Currently, my brother and his girlfriend are trying to claim my share of the inheritance for themselves. This is what happened. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive notifications. When my brother was 16 and I was just 4, our grandmother set aside a stock portfolio for us, transferring it to our accounts as soon as we reached the appropriate age. However, just 4 years later, my brother invested heavily in his stocks, purchasing a new Honda. I had known about my part much longer than he had. By gaining full control, the value was already considerable, due to significant investments in companies like Apple. I'm undecided about using the locked-in funds, as my dad always advised me to let them grow until I'm 40. I don't have a close relationship with my brother, and information about his life comes to me through our father. His new girlfriend, who works as a lawyer, sent me a formal letter claiming that the inheritance was intended for both of them, not just me. They say my brother's worth was only about $15,000 at the time, but mine was worth the same when he spent it. Now, they are seeking half the value of my inheritance, threatening me with legal fees and fines that would eat up my entire share, leaving me with nothing. The dividends from this inheritance significantly support my life, and losing half of that support would set me back for years. Although it may seem selfish, I'm used to counting on this extra income for my life changes and projects. I'm not sure if there is legal documentation to support the division of the inheritance. I have all logins, bank and trading accounts in my name, but considering the situation, I decided to get my own lawyer. My situation improved when I worked with my father and obtained legal advice. I discovered that the inheritance was originally part of my grandfather's portfolio, and my grandmother entrusted my father with the responsibility of taking care of it before she passed away. I believed my grandmother had already set the score for me, giving control to my father before passing. The shares were specified in her will, where she left everything to my father, with instructions that the equivalent of $15,000, when my brother received part of it, would go to me when I was old enough to take care of them. There was no trust, just trust in my father. My father did the right thing by opening accounts for me and granting me control 6 years ago. He even shared some of his own actions, providing an added advantage. Last year, my father admitted to berating my brother, who, over the years, had turned to him several times for financial help. It got to the point where my dad was tired of it. My brother discovered that I was still holding on to my investments when my father used him as an example of how he should manage his money. That's how he knew I still had my shares and that their value had increased considerably. By all accounts, my lawyer has assured me that I am legally protected. However, I do not intend to take this to court, as my brother's girlfriend was just a legal secretary, and, I say was, as the company she worked for apologized and informed my lawyer that she was fired immediately. The letter I received had been manipulated, putting her name higher than it should have been, and some contact details had been changed. A week after her dismissal, my brother came to visit me, begging for money, as his girlfriend was facing considerable debt. She took the opportunity to try to steal money from me and failed. Although I felt bad rejecting my own brother several times after finding out he was involved in damaging my tires, that compassion disappeared. The comments on the previous post made me realize that I have gaps in my knowledge about stock management, dividends, and finance in general. I decided to work with a financial advisor to optimize my resources. However, given this situation, which goes beyond a superficial issue, I know that the consequences can be long-lasting for the relationship between the two brothers. The older brother, who sold his share of the inheritance, possibly doesn't understand the impact this will have on how I am viewed for the rest of my life. Especially since he wasn't just asking for money, something I would have helped with, but tried to scam me with a fake legal notice prepared by his girlfriend. And the money wasn't even for him, it was to pay off her debt. This situation seems to indicate that the brother and his girlfriend simply don't think I should have this money, regardless of what its intended purpose was. This is the quickest way to destroy a family relationship. Especially since now the lawyers are getting involved, but I want to know what you would do if you were in the situation where a member of your family came to you asking for your share of the inheritance and then tried to pull this maneuver. Idiot or not, let me know below. My husband has lost control because I want to be a housewife. Before we got married, he asked me to be a housewife for his daughter from a previous relationship. I declined, as I wasn't at that point in my career yet. Now, married and about to have our first child together, things have changed. Now, I want to be a stay-at-home mom for our son so I don't have to put him in the hands of strangers and send him to daycare. When I shared this with my husband, he lost it, claiming that I broke our agreement and that the obvious favoritism I was showing to our son over his daughter, Lizzie, was disgusting. He had a psychotic break, and I had to leave, staying with my mother. Now, a divorce is on the cards. This is the recap of everything so far. If you want to hear the full story so far, click the playlist link at the top of the description and go to the video right before this one. Now, let's jump to the future and see what the outcome of it all was. Hi everyone, I know it's been a long time, but I just wanted to give a quick update while I still have time. I've shamed the little whales with my current size, and my baby is ready to come out of me in just a few weeks. Although technically he could be due any day now, after my last post, my husband's brother and best friend went over to find out what was going on. My boss was kind and let me start maternity leave early, telling me to take my time and figure out what I'm going to do, and my work is ready for me when I get back. They are taking very good care of me. I also saw a personal therapist for obvious reasons. I was numb for a while, and one day I just broke down and started crying. Crying and I couldn't stop for anything. I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. My therapist has been a huge part of my support system, guiding me through my issues and supporting my decisions. Like I said, my husband's brother and friend went over to talk to him, and they told me that he told them he was upset because I was breaking our previous agreement. He felt like I didn't love Lizzie or that I loved our son more. Maybe he made a mistake marrying me, because now I was choosing sides and being unstable. And I was gone when he told me to treat the kids fairly because he didn't think our son should have a stay-at-home mom since Lizzie didn't. They completely attacked him. His best friend Craig asked him what he was thinking when he came to such a ridiculous conclusion. He pointed out everything I had already done for Lizzie and that the fact that I was a part-time housewife would also benefit her as I would be able to do more things with her and spend more time with her. Also, that he was the idiot and I was smart, and clearly not after his money. Because I could have chosen to be an exclusive stay-at-home mom and let him be the sole financial provider, but I chose not to. His brother, Daniel, was even more direct. Daniel called my husband controlling and an idiot, saying directly that he didn't deserve me. He stated that my husband was being a controlling jerk, punishing me because of his ex-wife who he should not have married and had children with. We won't go into the details of the family anger over my husband's marriage and children with his ex-wife. Daniel highlighted that I was the best thing that ever happened to him and Lizzie. He emphasized that my husband was ruining everything with his own hands, and it was time for him to man up, get over his ex, and start treating me better, valuing me more. Daniel pointed out that my husband was being a terrible father to Lizzie and our son by thinking it was okay to force me to go back to work, believing that would make everything fair. Daniel claimed that I was a much better mother to Lizzie than his ex-wife ever was. I mentioned in my last post that my husband started texting me and blowing up my phone, begging me to come back, claiming he couldn't function, etc. He broke my rule by stating that Lizzie wasn't doing well without me, which angered me deeply and broke my heart because I love this little girl. He seemed so manipulative that he basically told my husband that if he continued to use Lizzie as a reason for me to return, he would file for divorce. I didn't want to be a surrogate mother to Lizzie. I wanted to be his wife and have a family that included Lizzie. I suggested he see a therapist and go to couples counseling with me, or I would start divorce papers because I couldn't bear to raise my son in a toxic, controlling environment. My husband agreed with both points, admitting that he couldn't live without me and recognizing that he needed help. The couples therapist was essential, addressed all the issues I had mentioned and tried to make my husband see that he was being unfair and controlling. While it was understandable that he felt fear and pain because of his previous marriage, it was cruel to take his problems out on me since I had never offended him and was not his ex-wife. The therapist highlighted that my husband was afraid that I would become like his ex and that I would favor our son over his daughter, or that I would no longer love her. The issue of his children versus our children was addressed. The therapist stressed that it was natural to feel more connected to a biological child than a stepchild. She reminded my husband that although Lizzie and our son were both her children, the same biological connection did not apply to me, and that was acceptable. The therapist questioned whether I had not been loving and kind to Lizzie, whether I had not taken care of her, gone out of my way and sacrificed for her, as any other parent would. My husband responded hesitantly but positively to all the questions. So the therapist concluded that there was nothing wrong with my feelings as long as I continued to treat Lizzie with love, respect, and kindness. So, there was no problem. She also pointed out that although he might be offended because Lizzie is also his biological daughter, it wasn't fair of him to expect me to feel the same love and connection to her as he did, as that was impossible. I didn't carry her, I didn't give birth to her, I didn't breastfeed her, and I came into her life when she was already a little girl. She pointed out that there are many types of love, and me having this special bond with the baby and wanting to stay home didn't mean I had lost any motherly love for Lizzie. It was just different. She explained that one of the biggest mistakes biological parents make with step-parents is blaming them or bullying them about their feelings towards stepchildren versus biological children, insisting that it has to be exactly the same. This, according to her, ends up causing friction and tension, making the stepfather and son feel inferior. If care is not taken, the stepchild may end up being the favored one as the biological parent tries to compensate for the perceived favoritism. She pointed out that parents tend to have favorites even among their biological children, but the key was not to act on it or make it obvious. It seemed like I was doing a great job so far, and we were ahead of the game because Lizzie was excited about the pregnancy and had a very positive, close relationship with me. My husband tried to argue that I would stay home with our son, but she countered with many of the points made in the last post. I wasn't in a position to work from home at that time. I would have had to quit my job. I wasn't married and I didn't feel comfortable giving up my financial security without being married. Lizzie was ready to go to preschool. She was not a child who needed full-time care. She concluded that the fact that I was happy to spend more time with Lizzie, even with the baby coming, was not territorial or aggressive about the pregnancy. I was still taking an active role in Lizzie's life, and these were very positive signs. We were, in fact, in a better position than many adoptive families. However, my husband, regrettably, tried but was unable to accept it. We tried to hang out as a family more in therapy, but he gave up, feeling attacked and believing that no one was on his side. He just couldn't understand why I should stay home to work with the baby. I asked him directly if he really wanted the baby, and he seemed shocked. He said of course he wanted to, he just wanted to make sure his daughter got what was owed to her. In the end, he refused to compromise, and frankly, I saw it as being blatantly unfair and cruel to our son, to insist that he be placed in daycare or given to a babysitter, all in the name of justice. Even though both his therapist and ours explained that fairness doesn't always mean equality, it seems he didn't want to see how me, being a stay-at-home mom, would also greatly benefit his daughter. I believe my husband expected me to give in, but all that did was make me lose my love and affection for him, especially when he abandoned therapy. I warned him that if he did that or tried to insist on what he wanted, I would be filing for at least an illegal separation. Apparently he thought I was bluffing, because when nothing changed, I went straight to the lawyer's office. He was completely shocked when he was summoned. We made a semi-formal custody agreement. I will keep the agreement to work from home while staying with my parents. My husband cannot be in the delivery room when I go into labor. He has to stay in the waiting room. He can see and hold our son, but he will have to do it while I am there with someone else. I insisted on this because, frankly, I am very scared of my husband and do not trust him at all. My husband is consumed with shock and sadness. His family is furious with him and completely supports me, although, of course, they are very upset with everything I have said. To his entire family, he said they are more than welcome to come to the birth and hold the baby. In fact, I want them to be there to supervise my husband with the baby so he doesn't do something horrible. My husband constantly calls me via text, saying he can't believe I'm doing this, why can't I hear and understand him, asking him to come back and be a family again, etc. I told him he needs to go back to therapy and that I need to be able to trust him with our son. This trust will only come when I see a change in his attitude towards her son and my stepdaughter. I need to feel like a wife to him and not just a mother to Lizzie. I love Lizzie. I really cry every day about losing her, but I didn't marry my husband to be her mother, even though I knew that was part of the package. I did it because I love my husband and wanted a life with him. Lizzie calls me often, and I talk to her. I've seen her a few times since that fiasco. Her father isn't allowed to talk about her to me because I feel like he's being manipulative, but I don't want to cut Lizzie out of my life. I love her so much, I cried so many tears for her going through this. I tell Lizzie that I love her very much, that none of this is her fault, and that I'm doing the best I can to make things work. I tell her that I still want her to be in my life and her brother's life and that she is the best daughter and bonus sister in the world. I heard from my husband's family, and Lizzie isn't taking our separation well. She even shouted at her father for a citation, making my two mothers leave. I was afraid Lizzie would hate me for it, but in fact the exact opposite happened. Her grades are poor, she is depressed, cries all the time and has become very disrespectful towards her father. I begged my husband to please seek counseling for that girl, and he has what has helped her. The guilt I feel is overwhelming and crushing. I feel like I single-handedly destroyed my family, but I know I'm making the right decision by standing firm and insisting that I be treated with love and respect. My husband can do the same for both children. I can't fix him, and if he's not willing to get help for his problems, I have no future with him. I'm not willing to get divorced yet, hence the legal separation. My husband insists he wants this to happen. I said I need to see some changes in his life, starting with him going back to therapy. I want to save my marriage, but I've done everything I can, and if my husband doesn't do his part, there's nothing I can do except move on. I told my husband that if he doesn't go to therapy by the time our son is 1 month old, I will file for divorce. If he takes advantage of this, hurts me, or even thinks about dating other people again, I will file for divorce. All in all, it's a sad update, but it's a catharsis of sorts for me, so I thought I'd share. To conclude, my husband and I went to counseling, but my husband wouldn't listen. He gave up and basically said it was his way or the highway. Now, I have requested separation. His family is on my side. Lizzie is devastated. I miss her every day of my life, it feels like she's falling apart, and I'm heartbroken. But I'm trying to stay strong. If my husband doesn't go to therapy in the next few months, or if there is more treatment, or if he tries to date other people, I am filing for divorce. I'm the idiot. It seems like some people doubt that the operation cares about Lizzie as much as she says she does, but I don't think that's the case. I believe she just has a different relationship with her than her son. It's sad that her husband is setting up her daughter to use against her because that doesn't help anyone in this situation. Fortunately, the operation drew a very clear line where they knew this was going to happen and asked him not to do it ahead of time, and he still crossed that line. The whole situation seems very difficult to resolve because both people have their own ultimatums for each other. Her husband demands that she not be a stay-at-home mom because Lizzie didn't have a stay-at-home mom. The OP told her husband that he needs to go back to therapy, and she needs to be able to trust him with their son. This trust will only come when she notices a change in his attitude towards our son and my stepdaughter, and that the therapy has to have the intended effect. He can't just give up. I wish there was a way to go back to the good old days before actually leaving them in this situation. It seems like they built their lives completely around each other without knowing how the other would react in a situation as serious as this, and the answer is neither. One of them is willing to compromise. The operation sees this as wanting to save my marriage, but I've done everything I can, and if my husband doesn't do his part, there's nothing I can do except move on. If I have to guess, I would assume that the husband probably thinks something equivalent to this, that he has done everything he can, but she is being irrational. Because both people see it from their perspective only, but the question is, how do you see who is right, who is wrong, and who is the idiot? If anyone wants to tell me what they think below, when you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. Thank you very much for taking the time and watching this video from the Reddit channel until the end. I hope you enjoyed the story and reflections shared. If you liked the content, I would be very grateful if you shared it with your friends and family. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like and activate the notification bell to stay up to date with all the channel's stories and updates. Your support is essential for the growth of the community. Thanks again and see you in the next video.